You ever build something with your hands and then watch a committee try to steal it with a printer? That's how my life up on that Colorado plateau started to look ridiculous, maddening, and somehow deeply, deliciously cinematic. I built this place from nothing, and then a little club with a letterhead decided my private road was their shortcut to the park. So yeah, they sent a letter. It said equitable access. It might as well have said, give us your gate or we'll color the map until it looks like ours. I swear to you, when I first read that envelope, bold HOA crest, Karen Marsh's name sitting like a crown, I laughed. Out here the air is different. It makes you honest and a little stubborn. 12 acres, my hands on every beam, concrete set by men. I paid wire buried 6 feet beneath the gravel so the coyotes wouldn't chew it up. This wasn't a weekend hobby. It was a life. The road that snakes up through the pines to my gate is half a mile of my sweat and patience. It's a road I closed at night because privacy isn't a suggestion, it's a boundary. So at the bottom of the hill, a demand dressed as civic concern felt like a slap in the face. They wanted the gate open. Not politely, not neighborly. They wanted my land to be their thoroughfare, morning joggers, dog walkers, moms with strollers, hikers with their infuriatingly polite smiles. Anyone could waltz through whenever. In light of community need, the letter said, which is HOA for we want your land because it benefits our property values. That's when the quiet got loud in my head. I called my lawyer, Nate Sharp, ex-prosecutor, now part-time elder statesman of small-town legal vengeance. And he said the 2 words every homeowner fears and loves: prescriptive easement. So I drove to the county clerk and pulled their filing. There it was, a servitude application with a blurry, roasted-looking map and a stack of affidavits. Exhibit A claimed a trail existed long before me. Exhibit B was a sworn statement from a Russell Kemp, whose surprise was Karen's cousin, that he'd been using the path since he was a kid. Exhibit C was a petition with 127 signatures and sad little doodles next to some of them. The whole thing read like a conspiracy typed up in a rush and stapled to someone's power play. I felt my jaw set. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. At night, the house didn't sleep. My cameras pinged. 1 perimeter alert bolt cutters, 3 figures hunched under hoodies, slicing through chain-link teens or hired hands. It didn't matter. I hit the floodlights, and the recorded voice I'd added to the gate, my voice clipped and calm, barked that trespassers would be prosecuted. They scattered. Cameras caught them, but not faces clear enough for arrests. Karen denied everything, of course, through counsel. We cannot comment on speculative events outside our jurisdiction. Translation: we're doing things, but we'll pretend we're not. The more they pretended, the more obvious the plan became. I could play defense. I could put up signs with Colorado revised statutes in red and hope ignorance and embarrassment would do the work. Or I could be annoying in the only way that mattered: facts. I hired a survey crew from Grand Junction, not your local kids with clipboards, but a team with drones, LiDAR, ground-penetrating radar, the sort of boys who measure a hill and make it confess. 3 days later, they dropped maps on my counter showing the land's topographic history. From 1990 through 2002, my future driveway was a green tangle, impenetrable, no path, nothing. Survey planes from the early 90s proved the same dense canopy, no trail. I felt a grin I hadn't known I owned. Then the other shoe, a slow, heavy thing that made my stomach holler. Gary Parks showed up at the gate, all Army straight posture and tired eyes, a Ridge Hollow board member. He told me he didn't agree with Karen, he didn't vote for the petition, she'd bullied the board, pushed things through on bogus emergency powers. And worse, she'd been talking quietly with developers about access routes that would jack property values. That was the angle, not hikers, not communal goodwill, but developer gold. Gary slipped me an envelope later with a USB and a sheet of timestamps. Everything changed. The USB was a clean knife. Internal HOA emails, memos, Zoom recordings, draft minutes. Karen and the treasurer plotting minutes about strategic rights acquisition, a note about securing access to the East Trailhead before spring to spike values for phases 3 and 4. One Zoom where she casually says, if we control the access, we don't need to own the land. Once people are using the trail, it becomes a norm. He'll give in or move. She said it like she was describing planting a garden, not dismantling a man's livelihood. I sent everything to Nate. He filed motion subpoenas, brought in the survey report and the state plane photos, and crucially, we leaked the right stuff to a journalist named Camille. Camille smelled a pattern, not just a gate, but a war of bureaucracy, a woman who liked power more than transparency. Her story hit the local news and then the national feeds. Publicity has a weight. It presses on things until secrets float. Suddenly, the county commissioner and the state attorney general were asking polite, pointed questions. Karen hadn't accounted for cameras and clever reporters in the way metadata delights in exposing lazy fraud. In court, the aerials had a voice of their own, black and white photographs that said no trail louder than any witness could. Marcos, my lead surveyor, described the land's history like a forensic artist reconstructing a scene. Our forensic tech walked the jury through the PDF metadata of the fake map. HP Color LaserJet 8000 firmware version creation date 9 months ago. They forgot to scrub the file. That's hubris or incompetence. Either way, it's a fatal combo in a courtroom. And then Gary. Gary walked in and told the truth under oath. The failed auction, the developer whispers the push to apply pressure if a purchase failed. The jury leaned in. The unraveling was almost beautiful. Board members admitted being strong-armed signatures were re-examined. The petition looked less like community action than like a crafted script. Karen tried to play the victim later, filed a frivolous emotional distress suit claiming I'd orchestrated a smear campaign. Judge Haskins had other ideas. She called it what it was: retaliatory and abusive of the court. The criminal complaint followed forgery, perjury, submission of false evidence. The jury didn't take long. Karen was found liable. The HOA was financially responsible. Fines and probation followed. The most satisfying part: the judge's closing line about weaponized bureaucracy. That landed like thunder. People like to picture courtroom drama as cinematic and clean. It's not. It's fluorescent, dusty, and full of uncomfortable chairs. But that day, with the verdict read and the courthouse door opening to a swarm of reporters, the weight lifted in a way silence up on the porch never had. I went home and let the snow settle on the gate without looking over my shoulder. It felt like a truce, like an old friend nodding and walking away. Because of the leak and the publicity, reforms trickled through: bylaws, rewritten limits on unilateral board actions, mandatory resident votes for big decisions. Karen got voted off, then officially barred from HOA leadership for a decade. The HOA had to pay my legal bills and my security upgrades, which, yes, padded my bank account in a gratifyingly righteous way. But the real victory wasn't the checks. It was the restoration of a boundary that had been obvious from the start. Private property is private until law says otherwise. I didn't stop there. For the final flourish, I applied to turn the parcel Karen wanted into a state-recognized wildlife habitat. The paperwork was a beast, but 3 weeks later, the designation was approved. That stretch of land became legally protected. Human foot traffic without written permission was now a criminal offense. I hung the new sign with a smirk. Conservation area. No access. Trespassers subject to criminal penalties. Under it, in smaller type, an invitation: take the feral detour a scenic mile away. Karma, in a way, likes local zoning. The lesson, if there must be one handed to you like an afterthought over coffee, is this power dressed up as community can hide uglier motives. People will use public good like a shovel to pry open private doors if no one asks what's really underneath. I've learned that the law is a blunt instrument until you arm it with evidence, and that publicity, when used honestly, can be a kind of justice. Not moralizing, just a quiet, late recognition that boundaries matter, that names on a map carry consequences, and that sometimes defending what you built is less about winning and more about keeping the world in its proper shape. When the snow finally piled and the cameras sat idle, I stood on my porch and listened, really listened to silence that wasn't anxious anymore. The gate clicked shut. The cameras hummed their low, indifferent hum, and for maybe the first time in a year, I drank my coffee without checking the feed. Peace tasted like pine and cold metal, and the knowledge that the system, clumsy as it is, sometimes still corrects itself. So tell me, where do we draw the line between civic good and civic greed? When does community planning become a serial abuser of small rights? And when is it truly for the common good? Drop a comment. Tell me a time you stood your ground or got steamrolled, and whether you think the law is enough. Share this if you like watching bureaucracy get served a slice of its own medicine.